Welcome back to the Limitless Health podcast. If you are a woman in your 40s and you are struggling with your health, this is a great episode for you. We're going through the 5 commonly accepted beliefs that women over 40 have accepted as true, but may actually be exacerbating their chronic health issues. So stay tuned for all of the ones we're going to go through. Kate, get us started.
All right, all of these are things that I've definitely been victim to and believing that they were true and they get in the way. And the first one we want to talk about is that anything that you're dealing with is not a normal part of aging. That's something that we hear all the time with clients. We've heard with family members we heard it at an event, which Amanda will probably share a little bit about that we were at last weekend. And it's such a strong belief that it's just normal for you to deal with menopause symptoms or joint pain or anything. Menopause is the big one that we see, but your age has nothing to do with that. If
Mhm.
that were true, every single person who's at that phase of life would be dealing with those symptoms. And I'm sure you can think of at least one person where that's not the case. So, Amanda, share with us a little bit about the event experience that you had.
Well, we were at this event and we were just having conversations with people around their health and just what's going on with them.
Mhm.
And this one lady we were chatting with, she mentioned basically, at my age, you start having joint pain and low energy. And that's just kind of the way it is. And you guys are young. You don't know what this experience is like, kind of thing. And I said to her, it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be. You don't have to believe you can. There are things you can do to change that. And before we could have a further conversation, she just walked away. And that's basically what one of the more recent reels that we posted was about, because of age is just up here. If you speak to anyone who is, I'm not quite sure how old this lady was, maybe in her 50s.
Mhm.
My parents are beyond 50s and doing fantastic. My mom CrossFits, my dad works
Yeah.
out very often. He's he's nothing stops him. He's all mindset. Like if something needs to be done on the roof, he's up there taking care of things. Nothing's stopping him. And that's because of mindset. It's not because of age. That's just BS, if you will let me say that.
Absolutely. And I agree. We know lots of people like that on both sides of it. Like when I talk from a family perspective, we have family members, or I definitely have family members who are like, well, I'm just at that age where I can't do these things anymore. And so they're getting rid of their sporting equipment, or they've just accepted that that's how
Mhm.
it has to be. But then, yes, your parents are incredible. Like to be around people who are older in life and see them thriving, you
Mhm.
just kind of don't even think about the fact that your dad's almost 80. And versus I have an uncle who's, I don't know how old he is. He's younger than your dad. And he seemed like had a cane, had a walker, and just accepted that this
Mhm.
belief was reality a long time ago. And you can
Yeah.
see a huge difference in people when that's the case. I mean, we used to CrossFit with a couple who also were in their 70s and were just amazing. And there's
Mhm.
so much behind belief that makes a really big difference when it comes to anything. We've talked about health issues, but that's why we wanted to bring these things up today because if you just accept that, if you it's like taking on the identity of, oh, I've tried everything, nothing works for me, or whatever illness. When you just accept that, it changes the way you behave and the way you show up in your life. And a normal part of aging is no different.
Mhm.
If there are
Yep.
people around you that are doing things that you don't think is normal for that part of age, it's like maybe you need to question that belief, not question
Mhm.
the people that are thriving, right?
Yeah, just thinking about that belief, if you have that about age, where did it come from?
Hmm.
Was there someone specific you think of when you say that?
Yeah.
And when you, again, we've talked about this before, when you look around at other people a similar age, is it true? Is it true for everybody? And when you think about that belief, ask yourself, is it really true? What do you really think about that belief? Dig a little deeper with some of these things.
And we talked about this in an interview recently about that you can't model what you can't see.
Hmm.
And so, if you're surrounding yourself with a group of people who are not active and who have accepted these beliefs, you're going to adopt the same way of thinking as the people you're surrounding yourself with. So, look for a group of like badass 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, whatever age category you are, that are doing the things you want to be doing. Because the saying is, I think you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. So if you want to do things, be active, stay healthy and fit later into life, maybe take a look at your surroundings and who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, I think that's very key. I think that's why I've seen older people who
Hmm.
actually hang out with younger people and the big difference that has on them, as opposed to if you got to a point where someone may have to go into an elderly home and the environment there is
Yeah.
not necessarily a positive one or full of energy. So for someone who is able to, like, we have a circle where there's an older lady in the group and she's just bursting with energy. I don't know if that's just because she is surrounding herself with a lot of younger people as well, but it's just interesting to see how that can affect so many things, the people that you hang around with.
Yeah. I won't get into it because that would make this a really long episode, but it makes me think of time being part of support groups,
Mm-hmm.
especially if there's health stuff going on. Okay, so number two, let's move on from here because that would be a like two
Yep.
hour episode to talk about that. Number two that I have down here is hormone replacement therapy is something that many women will often just kind of accept that it's going to be necessary as you get later in life. And HRT is short form for hormone replacement. That's what I'm going to use from now on. But that people think that for menopause, that's the only solution. And it's a widespread belief that that's the best way to manage menopausal symptoms. But you have to figure out it. Yes, it's normal to have changes happening in the body through this phase of life. But when it comes to anything hormone related, even younger, a lot of the times the solution when there's a hormone imbalance is let's put you on the birth control pill,
Mm-hmm.
which is the same concept. It's giving the person synthetic hormones, even if they're bioidentical. If it's not the hormones that your body made, it's foreign to you, right? And if the body is having an imbalance in the hormones, we need to figure out why. Is the body not metabolizing hormones properly, which is often the case? And if that's the case, throwing extra hormones into the system is not going to be beneficial. It's not going to solve the problem. And so, looking at HRT as the only way to manage menopause symptoms can often lead to overlooking that there are natural options, there are holistic approaches, and really focusing on addressing the root cause. Like this falls into the symptom trap, of which we've talked about before. This is just focusing on symptoms, which is putting a
Mm-hmm.
band-aid on the problem, which ultimately is not going to make things better. It's not going to make menopause better. If you're using HRT in the meantime while you're working on things behind the scenes, okay, because sometimes it can be a troubling time for people, but we always need to be looking deeper and figuring out what's the cause of the problems. But HRT being the only way to manage menopause symptoms is a common belief. And kind of a metaphor for this that might help it make more sense to you is using HRT to manage hormones is like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house that has crumbling foundation. While the new paint might make the house look better temporarily, it doesn't address the real cause of the decay. Eventually, the foundation problems resurface, causing more damage. And to truly fix the house, you need to strengthen and repair the foundation, just as you need to address the root cause of hormone imbalance to achieve lasting health and wellness. This is super important leading into perimenopause or in perimenopause, which is kind of the 5 to 20 years before menopause, and then also through menopause as well, just to give your body what it needs.
Number three, extreme dieting and intense exercise are necessary for weight loss. This is something for women over 40 that can be quite an interesting topic because this is something that's recommended very often.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, this is recommended in a time when it's the worst thing you could possibly do. Women over 40 think they need to drastically cut calories and do these hit high intensity workouts to get a result with losing weight. And this generally makes things worse. It boosts cortisol levels and it negatively impacts hormone balance and just makes it incredibly worse. So what we really want to do is find out what your body needs.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it comes to working out, it's a more gentle approach initially. We want to support the body through this process and really see, like, there's more nurturing involved with this time in our lives. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Even I remember, I don't know about you, but, and I've heard it from clients too, that I went to my doctor because I was like, I'm putting on weight and I'm
Mhm.
feeling like I had period changes and I had all kinds of things in perimenopause. So this was like my early 30s. And the doctor was like, well, you could eat less and exercise more. That would help. And that's the thing, is that Western medicine, this is often standard of care. When a woman is dealing with menopause symptoms, perimenopause symptoms, any kind of imbalance going through their 40s, through their 50s, medicine doesn't know how to handle this. It doesn't know what to do with it. So it'll throw hormones at you and recommend eat less and exercise more. And this is a time where your body needs nurture and support more than anything. It's a time where, by nature, we're going to lose muscle mass as we age. It just happens year after year. And so, yes, exercising is good from the perspective of strength training because we want to maintain muscle. But if you're not eating enough to rebuild the muscle that you're losing, it's just going to continue to decline. So eat less and exercise more is one of the most troubling things that I hear when someone comes to me and they're like, I've been, really cutting my calories back. I had a client at one point where we had to have a discussion because this is a belief that's deep for a lot of people. I was an 80s baby, so I feared fat for a really long time, and it's still advertised in lots of places that fat is bad for you and fat's going to make you fat. We need fat for our brain, we need fat for our hormones, we need fat for a lot of different things. But if you're not eating enough, oh, this client I was mentioning, I looked at her food journal and she was eating 800 calories a day. Like, that's not enough for your body to function if you didn't get out of bed all day
Mhm.
long.
Talk about stress also.
Yeah. And what can happen is, yes, it does cause a stress response in the body. And when we drive up cortisol in the body, cortisol leads to insulin spike. I'm trying not to get super technical, but this is going to cause more of a hormone imbalance. And insulin is our fat storage hormone. So if you're looking to stay lean, to stay healthy, to stay not brain foggy, to have energy, to have periods that aren't like driving you insane through this phase of life, eat less and exercise more may be the worst advice from this perspective. Yes, exercise is still important, but you need to do exercise that's supportive of your body and really prioritize, well, from a food perspective, protein. So you're getting enough protein to rebuild things in the body. And healthy fats are good too, especially for the hormone perspective. But we need to make sure that we're doing strength training because muscle is never going to be a bad thing to focus on in
Mhm.
terms of body at any age of life, right?
Exactly. You're thinking maybe you're someone in your 40s or your 50s right now, and you want to look ahead to what are the things you want to be able to do
Mhm.
when you're in your 70s plus. Maybe for some people, it's 60s plus, depending on where you are health wise right now.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a nice thing that people want to think about, but standing up from sitting on the toilet, do you want to be able to do that by yourself?
Yep.
Who wants to be as independent as possible? Getting up from a chair, putting on your own shoes, whatever, those little things that maybe we just take for granted right now because we have our health, or
Mhm.
maybe it's not where you want it to be. And there are ways to get better. It's really important to think about what kind of life you want to have when you're an older person. And that's something that kind of sticks with me for right now as well. I don't want to be that person.
Absolutely, especially at a point in life, and a lot of us are. Like, I turned 42 this year, so this is, I don't have kids, but it's kind of the sandwich generation time of life where you have kids that are leaving home and then
Mhm.
also aging parents. And to look at your parents and notice how mobile are they? How independent are they? And if you
Mhm.
do spend any time in a retirement home or you've ever been in a retirement home, look around. None of those people have muscle. And if you don't have muscle on your body, this is where independence is less possible and less
Mhm.
capable. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I was early 30s, I think, where I went from the perspective of I want to be skinny, I want to be able to walk around in a bikini and feel like top shit, and then realizing, you know what? I want to be able to be independent for of as long as my life as possible.
Hmm.
And I think it was related to seeing a family member who got to the point where they weren't, and how not pleasant it is to have your independence taken away from you. It's just a
Absolutely.
perspective shift that, can be helpful and can be useful.
Hmm. Absolutely. Let's get to number four because we're going to draw this episode as sometimes we do. Number four, medications are the only answer to manage chronic conditions. This is, I think we've heard so many clients and other people we've talked to at these events
Hmm.
tired of medications being the only response. They go to their doctor because they've got joint pain or skin issues or whatever it is, and it's here, take this medication.
Yep.
Okay, now you're having issues because of being on this medication, take this other medication. And it's frustrating because that medication is not actually taking care of the problem. So to think, well, that's our perspective, but anyone who's in the Western format and this is all that's happening, there's more than one way to improve your health. And that's kind of basically the message we want to get across.
Yeah. I can get really fired up about this one
Clearly, I did a little bit too. So,
because that was my experience. I went to my doctor when I was diagnosed with MS, and they were like, "Oh, we need to put you on this medication." And then the medication, it was designed, I'm air quoting, to reduce the flare-ups that I was having, the relapses that I was having, and it wasn't working. And so the doctor was like, "Oh, we'll just give you a stronger medication. We'll just give you a stronger medication." And I think I went through 3 or 4 different ones. And the side effects just got worse with every one. And then, oh,
mhm,
there's other side effects. So I'd go in, suddenly I was falling asleep on the way driving home from work on the 401. If you live in Canada, you know how terrifying that thought is. So the doctor's like, oh, we'll give you a medication to keep you awake. Oh, cool. Then I wasn't able to sleep at night. Then there's another medication. And then it was just like this laundry list of medication on top of medication. And as Amanda said, it is refreshing to see these events, these health fairs that we've been going to and interacting with people and hearing from so many people that they want a solution. They
mhm,
don't just want another medication because a medication is a band-aid. It's not figuring out what you need to get better. It's
mhm.
just, let's just make the symptoms less of a problem for you. Let's make the symptoms go away for now.
And this
And
is the symptom trap all over again.
it is. And the belief that prescription medication is the primary way to manage health problems, especially when they're chronic health problems. So that
Mhm,
could be skin issues, it could be digestion related issues. It could be like we had a client a while ago with ulcerative colitis, which is an irritable bowel problem, and medication is often the solution for that. And there may be times where medication is necessary. I'm not saying like never take a medication, but there are things you can be doing behind the scenes to work to give the body what it needs to start healing on its own naturally. So you
mhm,
don't need to stay on the medication, right? A couple weeks ago, I did a TikTok and I was talking about nutrition was huge for me when I wanted to move away from the MS medication. And this person commented and said, yeah, that's great, but nutrition's not a cure. And I replied, you're right. It's not a cure, but there is no cure for a lot of these chronic health conditions. And it's like if you can do something to help your body, is what's the harm in that,
mhm.
right? Like we talk about Jimmy all the time, who's a colleague who's got an amazing story, but one of the biggest things he says is the human body was designed to heal. And it's if it's not doing so, you need to find out what's getting in the way or what's missing,
Mhm.
which is super simple, right? And if you're trying to manage chronic health conditions like hypertension, like diabetes, or like autoimmune conditions like I had, just based on medication without exploring things like lifestyle changes, like nutrition, like natural therapies, you might be missing out on ways that can provide kind of long-term benefits without the side effects of medication.
Yeah, I think the verbiage around this is important as well. Medications are the only answer to manage chronic conditions. What does manage mean? Does that mean getting better? To me, it doesn't. I don't know what that
No.
means to our listeners or yourself, but listen for what words are you using when you speak about whatever you're dealing with?
Hmm.
Is it something that is a positive? Like, am I making this change in my health? Am I actually looking for vitality or all this energy? What positive things can you use instead? How can I handle this autoimmune issue so I can get to a place of huge vitality? I can't think of any other word right now, but that's just think about the words you're using, even maybe notice people around you and what they're saying, and just how can you flip it to be more positive? Because we're giving ourselves suggestions all the time as far as how we experience our day-to-day life.
Hmm.
And sometimes that simple shift can make a difference.
Yeah. It's like, is this going to improve my life in the long term? Right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's temporary, but if like I injected myself every day for 7 years, and hearing that you're going to be on this for life,
Mm-hmm.
it can be traumatic and it can be shocking, and maybe it's something that you have to do in the short term, but it's like behind the scenes, are you looking for other things that you can do, other ways you can help your body
Mm-hmm.
to do the healing that it was designed to do, so that eventually maybe you don't need the medication. Like we will never take someone off medication or tell them to stop their medication. I share my story because I'm a little crazy, but I will never tell someone to come off their medication. But
Disclaimer that we're not allowed to do that
yeah,
anyway. That's for your
no, I
doctor to
wouldn't
do
do.
with you.
All right, last one.
Yes. There was one last note I had on that. You might hear that there's nothing you can do, or you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life, that you have the final say as far as what happens to you and what you want to do. It's not up to your doctor to make that decision. You ultimately make the final call as far as what medications you are on, if you're on medications, and what you want to do. It's up to you. You are your own best advocate. All right, last one. As you said, stress is just a part of life. We deal with stress all the time. There's, you know, many women have chronic stress issues. It's just, and it gets worse with chronic health issues, and there's nothing you can do, right?
Yeah. And the type of clients that we typically attract, that we typically work with, is kind of probably because it's people like us, but it's the get shit done people.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people that are like, whatever, I'm going to get this job done. I'm going to push through it, and continuing to push through it. That may have been some of the factor for me as well. I was driving to become a store manager at a camera store. It was very boys club. So I had to work really hard to get where I was going, and it's like, in the end, did it make my health better? No, because I wasn't prioritizing doing the things that my body needed to stay healthy and to live a good quality life. I mean, does it mean that you just sit on the couch and like foot bath all day and do all these things without functioning, without doing what you're supposed to, what you want to do in life? No. But stress is not going to be beneficial if you're continuing to push forward, because it's not just the physical stress, it's not just the mental stress, the emotional stress. There are so many stressors that are causing the problems that people are dealing with that we don't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to stress, it's like, where are there areas that you can limit it or minimize it or give your body the support it needs to manage it better or deal with it, right?
Yeah, I think that's really crucial for the term that many people have said over the many years: fill up your own cup first.
Mm-hmm.
Put on the gas mask, the air mask, and the plane. Hopefully not gas mask. Put the mask on yourself first, so then you can help others. This applies to this very much so. If you are, likely we're speaking to women out there who are listening, you
Mm-hmm.
have families, you have kids, you have so much going on, you have work, that you need to be able to put your mask on first. You need to fill up your own cup,
Yeah.
because if you want to be there for your family and do all the many things that you're doing day to day, you need to take that time, even if it's 5 minutes for deep breathing. It's 10 minutes to have that Maybe you're writing in your journal in the morning, whatever it is that takes time for you as best as you can. You have to prioritize that. You have to make time. You can't say there's no time. It's just, it's not a priority.
Yeah.
Making stress, ways to handle stress better a priority is pretty important to make this issue a less of an issue, if you will.
Yeah. I heard a comment a while ago that really stuck with me, and it was like, look around you. Look around you in your environment, in your workplace, in any time you're out in public. How many empty cups do you see walking around?
It's a great line.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of thinking about it
Yes.
because so many people push themselves to the limit and then
Yeah.
wonder why my health tanked all of a sudden. No, it didn't.
Mm-mm.
Your health tanked because there was prolonged, I don't want to say neglect, but stress and like things put on your system that eventually it just couldn't take it anymore.
It's
And
not an all of a sudden. It
no.
may be if there's like a car accident or something like that nature,
Hmm.
but there's many years before there's an all of a sudden, as I'm air quoting,
Yeah.
that people say, all of a sudden I had a heart attack. All of a sudden, there's a stroke or whatever these negative things are. There's many steps that lead up to having those things happen.
Yeah. And for most people, if you look back, you can see that. Like
Hmm.
even for me, I at the time said all of a sudden I was diagnosed with MS, but looking back, it's like, there was other things leading up to that. Like I remember my abdomen used to go completely numb, and my girlfriend and I at the time used to laugh about it because she could pinch me or poke me as hard as she could, and I was like, I can't feel it, I can't feel it, and we joked about it and just thought it was a game. But there are signs, and we ignore them. And so rather than ignoring them, start paying attention and start giving your body the support. Like deep breathing. I've had clients with young kids and said to them, you know what? Lock yourself in the bathroom for 3 minutes and deep breathe, for 2 minutes, for 60 seconds and deep breathe. Deep breathing is enough to take you out of the fight or flight and give your body that nervous system reset. And it doesn't have to be really long, right?
Yeah.
So take the time for yourself because all of a sudden health problems happen when we aren't paying attention to these things.
Yeah. It's one of the easiest ways to change the state that you're in. If you want a more positive state, focus on your breathing.
Yeah,
That's number 5.
sound good.
So if you're anyone out there listening who any of this is resonating, any of this is landing for you, you can see where this is affecting your life and you want to find out more, the simplest way to do that is book a discovery call with us. It's a free 10-minute call. You can find out more about what we do and how we help, and ultimately if we're a fit, because that's one of the most important things as well. Yeah, just go to our website and alignnaturalhealth.com and book that call if you're interested to find out more.
Yeah, we've helped like more than 100 people help get to the root cause of their health problems and to figure out what's going on with them and what their body needs to get better. And success rate is pretty good. Like as long as you show up for yourself and you follow our instructions, you can feel better.
Yeah, everyone gets a result when they do that.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us today. As Amanda said, make sure you head to our website, check things out there, book a discovery call, and otherwise, we will see you on the next one.